If I ask Bears fans what will determine whether this season is successful, most answers would sound pretty similar. Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, the offensive line, the offense in general, and honestly, those are all reasonable answers. But what if we're all looking in the wrong place? What if the difference between an average season and a playoff season has nothing to do with passing yards? What if it has nothing to do with offensive rankings? What if the biggest factor ends up being something that most fans barely talk about? Because the more I look at this football team, the more I think there's one statistic that could tell us almost everything we need to know about the Bears in 2026. And it isn't points scored. My name is Kenneth Pierce, and this is Football's Greatest Bears, or FGB. Today we're talking about the one thing that nobody is considering about the Bears, and that thing is turnovers. I know, not the sexiest topic in football. Nobody buys a jersey because of the turnover differential. Nobody spends the offseason watching turnover highlights. Nobody walks into work on Monday morning excited to discuss field position. But here's the thing. Football games are often decided by possessions, and the teams that consistently create extra possessions tend to win a lot of football games. You know, one of the things I've learned over years of watching football is that fans tend to focus on what they can easily see. Touchdowns, big throws, long runs, highlight catches. Those are the moments that stay with us. Those are the moments that end up on social media. Those are the moments that dominate sports talk shows. But coaches see the game differently. Coaches understand that football is really a game of opportunities. How many opportunities did your offense get? How many opportunities did your opponent get? How often did you make them start with bad field position? How often did you get your own offense a short field? How often do you steal possessions? That's where turnovers become important, because turnovers don't just change a drive, they change the entire math of a football game. Think about it this way. Let's say two teams are relatively equal, similar talent, similar coaching, similar execution. What's often the difference? A turnover, an interception, a forced fumble, a strip sack, one extra possession, one short field, one mistake, one moment. That's all it takes. For those of you who remember the Lovey Bears, think defense, special teams, field position. And I think Bears fans may be underestimating how important that could be this season. One of the reasons is because of the personnel. When I look at the defense, I don't just see players who can stop offenses. I see players who can create problems. There's a difference. Some defenses are designed to survive. Some defenses are designed to attack. Those are not the same thing. I spoke recently about Jalen Johnson, but he's not just valuable because he covers receivers. He's valuable because quarterbacks eventually get impatient, and impatient quarterbacks make mistakes. Montez Sweat isn't just valuable because he records sacks. He's valuable because pressure creates bad decisions. Pressure creates rushed throws, pressure creates fumbles, pressure creates opportunities. Javon Dexter's continued development matters for the same reason. Interior pressure creates chaos, and chaos is where turnovers live. That's one of the reasons I'm so interested in Dennis Allen this season, because when I look at successful defenses around the league, one thing stands out. The best defenses don't simply prevent points. They take the football away, not turnovers, takeaways. Shout out to Lance Briggs. They create extra possessions. They give offenses opportunities. They force opponents to play from behind. And when that starts happening consistently, entire seasons can change. Now, here's where this becomes really interesting, because everybody's talking about what Ben Johnson can do for Caleb Williams, and they should. That's an important conversation. But what if Caleb Williams doesn't have to be Superman or, Iceman? What if the defense helps carry part of the burden? Not that burden. What if instead of needing 12 play drives every time down the field, the offense occasionally starts at midfield? What if a turnover creates a short field? What if a strip sack immediately creates 7 points? What if an interception changes momentum? Suddenly, the offense's job becomes easier, and easier is exactly what you want for your young quarterback. One of the mistakes fans make is assuming that offense and defense exist separately. They don't. They're connected. A defense that generates turnovers helps the offense, and offense that scores points helps the defense. Everything works together. That's why great teams often look greater than the sum of their parts. The units support each other. And of course, at some point, we'll discuss special teams. When I look at the Bears, that's one of the things that gives me optimism, because for the first time in a while, it feels like there could be some balance. Now let's talk about Bears history for a moment, because Bears fans should understand this concept better than almost anybody. Think about some of the best defenses in franchise history. What made them special? It wasn't just that they prevented points, it was that they created opportunities, forced fumbles, intercepted passes, they changed games, they stole possessions, they made offenses play from behind, they imposed their will. The 1985 Bears didn't become legendary simply because they tackled well. They became legendary because they overwhelmed their opponents. They dictated the terms, they created the chaos. And while I'm not comparing this defense to the 85 Bears, I do think there's a lesson here. The most impactful defenses don't simply react. They attack. They force the action. They make quarterbacks uncomfortable. They make offensive coordinators uncomfortable. And eventually, they make mistakes happen. That's why I think turnovers are one of the most overlooked indicators of whether a team is truly becoming dangerous. You could survive without having a number one offense, and you could survive without having a number one defense. But it's much harder to survive if you're consistently losing the turnover battle. And the opposite is true too. Teams that consistently win the turnover battle often outperform expectations every year without fail. Now, let's be fair. Turnovers can be unpredictable. Nobody can guarantee a certain number of interceptions, not even Al Harris. Nobody can guarantee a certain number of forced fumbles. The football has a way of bouncing oddly. A tipped pass, a lucky bounce, a missed recovery. Sometimes randomness is part of the equation. But good defenses increase the odds. Good defenses pressure quarterbacks. Good defenses challenge receivers. Good defenses attack the football. Good defenses create opportunity for good things to happen. And that's what I'll be watching this season. Not just sacks, not just tackles, not just yards allowed, takeaways. Because I think takeaways may tell us more about the future of the football team than almost anything else. Imagine a scenario where Caleb Williams improves, the offensive line improves, Ben Johnson's offense overall improves, and the defense suddenly becomes one of the better takeaway units in football. That's not just a playoff team, that's a potentially dangerous team. A team nobody wants to play. A team that can beat you in multiple ways. A team that doesn't need everything to go perfectly in order to win. And that's why I keep coming back to this topic. Because when people discuss the Bears, they almost always focus on what the offense could become. But the real story ends up being how often the defense gives the offense opportunities. What if that's the hidden factor? What if that's the one thing we've all been overlooking? Because if the Bears become one of the NFL's best turnover producing teams, a lot of the conversations we're having right now could look very different at the end of the season. So here's my question for you. What's more important to the Bears' success in 2026? Caleb Williams taking a major step forward, or the defense becoming one of the NFL's best takeaway units? But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to Football's Greatest Bears, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. Thank you for spending part of your day with me, Bear Down, and FGB.